Hi, everyone. Welcome to a massive Monday market update here on a beautiful sunny Monday in Adelaide after the gather round. If you're an AFL fan, you would understand how big that was and how electric the city is currently. Today, I'm going to have a look at some key data that we look at on-chain data. It is a core pillar of how we look at assessing opportunities in terms of cycle, short-term, medium, and long-term. It is absolutely core and essential to your overall investment thesis. I'm also going to have a look at Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, maybe another one, depending if we've got time. But I just want to start with the Bitcoin data that I just mentioned just then. So it's really, really important to understand because a lot of people, especially the media is the worst exponents of this, is just being very influenced by shorter term noise, market pricing, market pricings, and shorter term moves on a price chart. When longer term investors are not swayed by that at all, they've got a longer term vision, a longer term investment thesis as well, and they really have a tight understanding of where the world's going, what the unique capabilities are of Bitcoin, and why the world is getting more and more interested in it. Then we look at on-chain data, which is essentially an X-ray machine, which we look at, tells you everything about the blockchain underneath Bitcoin, what's happening in terms of holders, different metrics. It's hyper useful. We cover it every single. That's not true. Every single newsletter that we have, we try and incorporate on-chain data. But this week, this Thursday, when I release the newsletter, I will be incorporating some on-chain data to back up what I'm telling you about the current state of the market. But this specifically is telling us why Bitcoin has shown such tremendous resilience. When it went down, FTX blew up, of course, as an overreaction to the downside, but why has shown such tremendous resilience, almost like a beach ball being held underwater, and now it's springing back up. Then you say, well, who's buying that? Well, there's just not a lot of sellers. So liquidity is very, very low at the moment, but there's always a steady demand of buyers in this market. And if that is steady and the sellers start to wean off, and if we get an overextension, we wipe out a lot of leverage and liquidity, generally what we see is a slow grind up, very similar to 2019. And I'll show you on the chart in a sec why that's really interesting to sort of compare with now. But again, back to the data, what we see here. Feel free to pause and read this. Follow Checkmate. We've done an episode. He's the head analyst at Glassnode. We've done Joe, myself, and Checkmate did an interview, which was really, really great. It went for about a little over an hour. And we talked about everything about on-chain and generally where the macro sits and broadly where the market sits. So definitely watch that. It's on our channels on Twitter and YouTube and whatnot. But here, long-term, short-term holder threshold. So long-term, short-term holder metrics are my Bible. I go to them to tell me about cycle analysis. When we're in a bear market, when we're in a bull market, when we're entering, capitulation phase, when we're out of that, when we're, in a nice middle phase, all of that. But here, the only thing I want to point out to you here is the long-term holder supply and the short-term holder supply. Now, right now, the long-term holder supply, so correct me if I'm wrong, but this is supply being held for longer than, I want to say a year, it could be a little bit more, I have to make sure I've got that right. But regardless, it's about longer-term holder supply, so it's being taken offline, sitting in hardware wallets. That is in a state of just on the rise. It's grinding higher. It is up and to the right. This is why price is grinding higher. There's just not a lot of people wanting to sell their Bitcoin at these prices and waiting for higher prices. And you have that double whammy effect, the fundamental analysis that thought that the world is heading towards fiat currency debasement, heading towards recession, a lot of other things I could throw in there and go deeper on. Really, we see where things are tracking. People want to hedge. They want an insurance policy against the current financial system that's outside of the current financial system. And right now, that is largely gold. And then you've got something like Bitcoin, which has been known as gold 2.0. So regardless, investors are unfazed. Longer term stuff looks really, really healthy. I just wanted to show you that the longer term supply is just increasing. So again, all of this noise is just being put out of the mind. And just you really just need to learn how to filter it out. It's one of the biggest pillars that we cover in our course is mindset and how to navigate these waters without getting thrown off between cycles. Because why are you getting bearish now when we're heading towards a Bitcoin halving next year, 2024, where the inflation rate to market, so the mining reward to market, is actually halved? It becomes scarcer than gold next year. And you see where the world's going in terms of fiat currency debasement. And it just makes a ton of sense that Bitcoin's going to get a pretty good bid, likely throughout this year. And we'll see if there's a massive pullback, which seems reasonably likely, like 2019. But we'll have to see. We want to be careful with preconceptions, whether we're just going to have a bull market after 2024, or is the market going to surprise us this year because we're in a different macro environment. Okay, I want to bring up Bitcoin's chart on the weekly just very, very quickly. I wanted to show you what a positive trend looks like. And we've been saying it since it broke out of this very clear downward trend line move, you could say, all the way back here. As soon as it really breaches with a pretty significant candle, and this is, I can redraw this however you want. And I think that's how I had it drawn originally. But this candle just blitzed right through it, created a new positive uptrend. So you've got higher lows underneath, and then you've got high highs. So all the candles are making high highs after the last. That's a new positive trend. It's like a staircase up. You can really see it. It's the exact opposite of what we saw in the bear market. And we're in this area here where it just like flatlined, exactly like 2018, 19, until buyers step back in. There's liquidity coming in on the buy side. That is an area of high value to a lot of longer term investors, and eventually just overwhelmed bears. They got totally exhausted and now we're in this positive uptrend. Now I have overlaid 2019, so just keep this really, really simple. This is the 2019 price direction from the bear market. It's not exactly the same as now, and of course you wouldn't expect it to be, but it's very useful in assessing where we might be headed, because patterns are very predictive in Bitcoin, especially because of the programmatic monetary supply. So like I said, next year the supply we know is halved. So these cycles tend to repeat for investors and they pay dividends. So you've got to watch this. And so again, this is the bar chart of 2019, the exact path. So reasonably similar, obviously often a different trajectory. 2019 was a little bit shallower. We've really pulsed out a lot harder since then. You see here, this big cut through the 200-week moving average, this red line here, this big candle rips right through it. In 2019, did the same thing there, just a little bit later in time scale. We're hugging underneath resistance here, consolidating, whereas in 2019, it sort of hugged, let's say, the $25,000 level, which we haven't gone back and tested yet. And then a real blitz through this key level at 30,000 before we went into a state of parabolic advance. And that's where we have to be careful. So it seems pretty clear once we break 31,000, we're going to go off into a bit of a phase. We're going to go into a really strong upward move, maybe to 35, 40,000, potentially higher. But that's when you've got to be careful that we're heading into this parabolic advance where it just gets really, really steep. And again, you have to be very wary on the technicals when we breach this parabolic advance to the downside. When it breaches that, then things can get a little bit messy and it comes back for consolidation, maybe around 30. And then I'm just speculating here, but that looks really obvious to me, very similar to 2019. We went sideways into the halving, which is here denoted by this blue line. So very, very interesting. It does look like we're trying to cool off here as well. So we can absolutely come back to that $25,000 area. But generally, this is what uptrending markets do. They do not give anyone a chance to crack in. And like 2019, they leave a lot of people in stables still waiting for 12K. And back in 2019, it was waiting for 1K instead of 3K. So, 1 foot in the now, 1 foot in the future. That's the best thing I'd probably tell everyone here now. But it's not going to follow this exactly. This is painting potentially a retest of the all-time highs back in 2021, 64. Do we get to 69,000? We'll see. But suffice to say, if we even approach those all-time highs, there's going to be sellers re-engaging in those areas. And low liquidity will work in the opposite direction there as well. When we're really, really high and suspended towards all-time highs, there's likely not going to be a tremendous amount of buyers in that region, depending on the macro that's happening, until we build a solid support and base. That's why I think a nice pullback and retracement, just to freak everyone out again, is very, very likely. But again, this all happens in cycles. And if we go back to 2019, we had that big rise up here, up there, then sideways chop, COVID, and then upwards. Do we get another COVID style event? I don't know, but this would be very interesting. It has that pullback to 30,000. So yeah, lots to like about Bitcoin here, and it's very obvious where the trend is going. Litecoin, this was in my Altcoin Bible, was my cherry ripe, and it did exactly what we hoped it would. This pattern sort of played out to a T, had the breakout here in the top. Could be a fake out here, sure, and we have to wait and see what happens at the support level. Could come back in here and chop around there. But broadly, Litecoin's relative strength has been really, really strong in this environment. And saying this to our mastermind clients a lot, you really want to have a small watch list of cryptos that you're investing and looking at, and also look for narratives and relative strength. That's all you need to look at in these situations. We are not in a bull market. It may feel like it, may look like it, but then you probably haven't experienced a bull market, and it's a totally different kettle of fish where you can essentially throw darts at a dartboard and generally win on most things. Granted, there's a lot of cryptos moving up like rising tide lifts all ships at the moment, but it is not a bull market. There's very low liquidity, so pumps are generally sold into, especially on altcoins. You've got to be very aware of this, managing your risk. And I would suggest if you haven't, make sure to do our course, which tells you how to manage that risk and mentally prepare for those situations. Understand how liquidity flow works, especially in crypto. But Litecoin, just that perfect breakout of resistance, turn support wick, and now we're breaking out, running into that $100 level. And why that is so important here, not only is a psychological level because of those 3 digits going from 99 to 100, 3 digits, it is also the 200-week moving average. Bitcoin and Ethereum have already gone through their 200-week moving average. Bitcoin at 25,000, Ethereum, can't quite remember where it is, but it is much, much lower than it is now. Only when these cryptos, these majors, get on top of these key moving averages out of a bear market, they're off. They're on a real run. So again, this probably be in my old Bible again this week, unless something else jumps out at me. But exactly what I'm looking for: low risk, established cryptos which have liquidity. So that's what you need to be looking for, guys. So that's what I'll just share with you here today. But if you're being conservative, you wait for this break of the 100, come back, retest resistance, now support. So that's what I'm looking at. All right, Ethereum, just as a spectacular looking chart. Shanghai upgrade was almost a non-event. It was a bit neutral, which was great. No big sell-off. In fact, there was a big bugger off green whip that just ripped through the $2,000 level, which is fantastic. I'd love to see, in fact, I would almost think it's almost a certainty that we see a pullback here to the $2,000 level, retest resistance, now support. See over here, it's so consequential. 2,000 psychological as well. But just broadly, you want to see that come down, hit some volume, hit some liquidity, and have that bounce. See what the reaction is there. Really, really strong. Ethereum's just shown so much relative strength. And again, I'll harp on it again because we've been calling it in the altcoin Bibles with Litecoin, Ethereum. Look for that relative strength. Ethereum has just been going higher low, really strong higher lows, almost going into a parabolic advance here. And then you've got higher highs as well to top onto that. RSIs broadly across the board looking like they're just wanting to cool off and come back a little, which is great. You do not want to see just boom straight up because it's going to come straight back down. You want to see consolidation, considered staircase up. And then you're likely going to see elevated down eventually. But Ethereum looks really, really good here on the longer term time scale, not in the now. Could look good in the now too. I haven't gone down to the daily on this session. I did on the other, and still it looks like it's consolidating. For mine, it's still an opportunity here. You look down at 2,000, get very, very interested there in those levels, if not a bit below. All right, and finally, this is, again, something I shared with Mastermind. I'm going to share with you guys today. Opportunity, just keep an eye. AI is just being mentioned across news channels. Again, Elon Musk coming out as well, saying, civilization's at risk. A lot of big companies, tech companies are looking at AI again and advancing things. Sovereign nations are advancing things really, really quickly, probably too quickly, according to a lot of people, including Musk. As an investor, though, narratives, not everything, but they're close to it. AGIX is in the basket of AI cryptos, is probably one of the more volatile ones, the harder running ones. Look at these ones. Again, liquidity is very low, but if you're trading these kind of narratives, look for the ones with the highest liquidity, the best eyeballs, most marketing, all that. AGIX fits that bill. This since this breakout here of this trend line, almost to a T, beautiful breakout here, retest support, a bit of a fake out here again, retest again, blitz higher. Now it's consolidating. I almost say that's a flag looking situation there. You can almost just draw that down, whatever. To mine, gets above this 200 on the 4 hour. AGX is off to 49 cents. So just keep that in mind. Narratives are everything. It's building a base, capital inflows, RSI cooling off, stock RSI cooling off as well. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Make sure to stay tuned to all our channels, post comments, feedback. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Make sure to read our newsletter. Give us some feedback there. If you listen to our podcast, post in our groups. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. And this will be going out to the podcast as well. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Potentially I could talk a little bit more visually about what I'm seeing. So on the podcast, you can, again, sort of visually put a picture together without actually watching the screen that I'm doing. That could be an improvement. But broadly, guys, I think these sessions are working really, really well. I hope you're having a great day. Catch you again on Wednesday for the Altcoin Bible. If you're looking to join the team, take that next level in the course, please do. If you're in our free chat, thank you for contributing as well. You're posting in there, and I see a lot of interesting conversations. If you're ever unsure about a crypto, yes, post in the group. And please, 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 there's something I'm noticing in the chat, especially now that the market is starting to look a bit better. is that scams are absolutely back in earnest. Please do not get married to a crypto. Please make sure you know what due diligence and research is. There's some cryptos being suggested in there that are just open scams. And if you had done our course, you'd know how to identify them. It is imperative you get this right, or you're going to be the next on the list for a rug pull. I know that you may not have been a victim of a scam yet. You may have made some money on these things, but go back and look at why some of these scams have failed in the past and why these are likely to fail again in the future. And just because you got lucky once or twice does not mean you're about to lose everything in this one crypto that you're looking at, and listening to buzzwords like decentralization and different things that just pop out to really drive the buzz around something. They're just buzzwords. And if you start asking about what is decentralization, or how is this crypto decentralized if it has a known founder, centralized supply, an ICO, all this. I mean, you've got to really look into it and to make sure you know what you're talking about if you are openly investing in it. Because at the end of the day, we're educators. We want to help you. But broadly, if you don't want to take that next step, if you don't want to listen, I mean, sure, that's up to you. Some of the biggest learning lessons I've ever had, Joe's ever had, and some of our team have ever had, not some, all of us, whenever we've made a mistake, that is when we have our biggest learning. So if you get burnt, and you get burnt really hard, I guarantee you will not repeat that same mistake. And if you do, I mean, that's on you. But sometimes you need to learn a hard lesson before we're willing to maybe listen and take charge. So I hope you've, again, enjoyed this episode. Hope you found it really constructive as well. Have a great day, and we'll catch you again next time. Bye.